Welcome. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly what I think is the best one-man army loadout slash build out there is to beat the squids or Illuminate, is the official term in Helldivers 2 and why. And I'm going to break down this video into three simple parts. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit first. So the first part is I'm going to share with you what my criteria is for the best build and loadout. So when I say best, you know exactly what I mean. And then I'm going to give you a quick reminder of the basic skills that I think are really important because it doesn't matter what build or loadout you use if you don't have the basic skills, right? And it's just going to help you have a lot more fun. And then the second part of the video, right? And also I've included timestamps of this in the video description below if you want to fast forward ahead. But anyway, back to the second part of the video. So I'm going to go over and show you exactly what I think is the best loadout slash build, whether it be for solo or for team play when you're playing with randos, because you can't really tell or predict exactly what they're going to use. And then I'm going to go into more detail on how to use it. And also, what if you don't have everything that um, I've talked about, which I think is the best build slash loadout, right? And I'm going to say build or loadout interchangeably in this video. Um, but yeah, what if you don't have everything I mentioned? Well, I'm gonna share a placeholder or slash beginner build that you could use in the meantime. Now, that doesn't mean you can't just like solo the missions or do really well against the squids. It means you're slightly less effective, but most people watching these videos, they're normally watching it one, because they want entertainment. Two, they just want to see how far they can push things with their own wacky builds as well, but have a better understanding of just how to fight the faction better. And then there's those who just want to know what the best build out there is and just try it out for themselves, right? And there are probably others I'm not aware of as well. But anyway, down to the third one. So after I've discussed what I think is the best build out there, you might be curious, you might not be, but if you are curious about why I didn't choose anything else, then I'll go into that in depth as well. So let's move on. But yeah, like in terms of best build, I'm just trying to figure out like which build can handle the most pressure before it breaks. Okay, so just a quick note about the best build. So when I'm talking about best build, it's not about what requires the most skill all the time because that's just not humanly possible. You can't be 100% accurate, like 100%, like no mistakes, absolutely whatsoever. Um, so what I'd like to focus on is about for the best build, it's about what requires the least amount of skill and actions to achieve the most positive results. In other words, what gives you the most advantages whilst negating your enemy's chances. Then I just push it to the max, right? That's what we call, or generally we call min-maxing. Okay, so next. So what do I mean by like what's the criteria I use for determining what I think is the best loadout out there? Okay, so solo, because that's the best way to stress test, right? When you have teammates, you can't test the same thing predictably all the time. And then I don't use any stims simply because I feel like it covers way too many basic mistakes. And I just generally like the more realistic aspect of it. I find that more fun. Most people aren't going to do that, but that's just me. And then no deaths, right? Because otherwise it's not solo. And even from a role-playing perspective, if you've got more than one life, why not just deploy them all at once, right? Because at the end of the day, we're just role-playing how we want to play in the game. And then the next point is the full map cleared. This does not include POIs or points of interest because it's not just about kills, right? You got to do the secondary objectives. I think the secondary objectives, yeah, as well. And then the next one is kill as many enemies as possible, right? This is not a stealth game. There are stealth elements, but this is not this is not a stealth game. The devs never advertise it as a stealth game. But in short, the more kills, right, the more stress you can handle because we're trying to figure out what can handle the most stress. And then obviously the highest difficulty is currently Super Helldive for general stress testing. And then it should be able to do well against any sub-faction of the squids. Currently there isn't any, but there will be soon, right? Because the sub-factions are basically the exact same type as the main faction, only slight tweaks. Could be slightly faster, slightly tougher, slight change of weaponry, but they're not too different from the main faction. But anyway, it shouldn't matter. is what I'm trying to say with the best loadout. And then the last factor is it should be able to handle any terrain, any mission modifier, even in a forest or a mega city. It shouldn't matter at all. And it just comes down to having a basic understanding of the foundational skills. Once you have that, the your loadout should be able to handle, ideally, your best loadout should be able to handle any terrain. Okay, now another important thing is all the in-game updates that are going to be shared after this video will be added in the pinned comment below, right? And I'll only create a new video on the best loadouts for specific factions, um, only after the devs have added significant changes to the game. And I've been holding on to this video for like 9 months now, because I kept hoping Arrowhead would actually make a large update to the faction. I still don't feel like they've really done that, but I don't see them updating the squids for the rest of the year or in all of 2025. So I thought I'd just release it because someone's going to benefit from it, and I'm sure many of you guys will be entertained by this video, right? So anyway, yeah, I'm just not going to release videos every time we have a new update saying, oh, this is the best build, that is the best build, because it doesn't really work like that. Um, anyway, moving on. Okay, so now let's go over just a quick reminder of the foundational skills that you need, regardless of your loadout, to get good. Because if you don't have this, it doesn't matter what loadout you try to use, the results you get is going to be about the same. Okay, it's kind of like if you're working in a kitchen, it doesn't matter how good the ingredients are, you're going to end up with the same quality of the dish if you don't know how to cook in general. Okay, so number one, check the map often. Okay, your map radar. I cannot stress this enough. So many players I have seen have asked me to give like critiques and so on. They don't check it often enough. How often should you check? Well, in my bug rupture strain loadout recently, I actually um, counted that and I checked the map 277 times in 43 and a half minutes. Basically, I checked it every 9.38 seconds, right? Do you need to check that often? Probably not, but you should try to check as often as you can because otherwise you're going to run into an ambush. And remember, um, mm, 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 yeah, also, obviously, it helps you to remember where your objectives are, but if you don't check the map, then you're going to get slapped by something you never saw coming, and it's just going to frustrate you. First couple of times it's going to be funny, but when it happens too often, you're just going to get frustrated and you're not going to have fun. Okay, so check the map often. Cannot state this enough. The number one thing, and it requires no skill. Okay, yeah, the next one is use the terrain. Okay, you've got a charger chasing after you on bogs, run behind a wall. You've got bots shooting you, get behind cover. You've got voters chasing you, climb onto another platform. The same thing with the flesh mobs as well, right? Run behind walls. I know the currently the flesh mobs can glitch underground, but like aside from that, find cover. Use better. You just basically use the terrain better. Is what I'm saying because positioning is everything. It will solve most of your problems. Okay. Number three, bait reinforcements. Now, what I mean here is get the enemy to drop reinforcements in areas you don't care about. Now, for the squids, it's a lot easier to negate reinforcements because they're watchers. It's a lot easier to target and kill compared to stopping reinforcements compared to the automatons and the terminates. Okay, so maybe you won't need this tactic as much, but it's still useful to know. And then the fourth one is learn the base layouts of um, the specific squid objectives. Okay, because this will help you know what to do so much faster and more efficiently. Okay, you don't need to specifically go out your way and learn this because you'll just learn this through repetition. Anyone watching this video is probably played against the squids a couple of hundred times, and you will have known most of the layouts anyway. So yeah, I wouldn't stress too much about this. You'll learn along the way. Don't worry. The next thing then is don't get tunnel vision. Okay, same thing. This ties into with the very first one. Check your map often, because you always need to be ready to fight in another direction because the enemies can engage you from whatever direction they want. And the killer blow is always going to be the one you never saw coming. It's kind of in boxing, right? The knockout blow is normally the one you didn't see coming. The last one then is think and then fight because it's insanely hard to do both. So ask yourself first before you ever engage in a fight, when and where is the best place to fight? Then fight when it's in your favor or when you want to. Okay, and normally when you want to fight, you want to do it in a way that is in your favor, no matter what weapon you use. And again, this ties into checking your map as often as you can. And if you're asking yourself, am I checking it enough? You're not. Okay. Just treat that as a precaution. Check again. Okay, now let's go into the loadout. And one thing the newer players will have noticed is I've got Repel Invasion loadout above. Now, this faction is a little different to the others because we have what I call an extremely different mission. Most of the missions you're used to are either evacuate high value assets, right? Which is, I don't know, what, 15 minutes, and you just sit in a point and just turtle up, right? And then you've got your normal 40-minute missions, you've got your blitz missions, and so on. But you have this 20-minute mission that is completely different to what everything we've ever had. So instead of just giving you one best loadout, I'm giving you two. I'm giving you one based on the Repel Fleet Invasion mission, which is currently not on the map. We only got it earlier in the year during the super invasion of Super Earth. So I haven't seen it since then. Maybe the devs will open it back up. But I'm gonna talk about this first, and then I'm gonna go over the loadout that I would normally bring for the 40-minute missions that you could also use for Blitz and well, basically any other mission. Okay, but anyway, for the Repel Invasion Fleet loadout, this is what I suggest. Okay, is recoilless rocket, and then we have MG Sentry, a machine gun Sentry, Gatling Sentry, the anti-tank emplacement, and then we have the Sentry booster, and then we have actually I've forgotten the name of this armor passive, but I have it in the next slide. And then we have the Eruptor, right, as the primary, we have the P4 Senator as a secondary, and we have the Secret Grenades as the throwable. So let's go into why I've chosen each one of those. So for this one, because we have to kill like, was it 50 ships, right, all around the map, which is about the same size as a Blitz map is I just use a recoilless to destroy warp ships from afar, and there were normally two-shot warp ships, not through the door because that's normally a one shot if the shields are down. And I use it so that I can quickly kill them, destroy the ships, and aim and shoot them from any angle. Okay, because trying to get in front of them, it's just a pain in the ass all the time. And the next thing is I have the two sentries is they just help protect me because there's a hell of a lot of enemies. They've toned down the number of flying overseers and all the other enemies running around at you so they don't spawn as many compared to when the mission was first shared. Um, and then we have the ATE emplacement, right? The anti-tank emplacement, which again fulfills the exact same role as the recoilless, right? Except it has more shots. It can shoot at one time, and it takes a little bit longer to destroy targets, but that's fine, right? Because I believe each drop is like 30 shots, so you could easily kill 6 warships per drop, which is more than enough. Okay, so then let's go over a little bit about the core strategies, right? Which is different from the base strategy because if I go back here, right, this is just basic skills. And you could say this is also basic skill as well, but I'm just emphasizing a little bit more about how I play, especially with the loadouts I choose, is one, always use space. Space is your best friend. It gives you the time to rethink how you want to play. It gives you time to be proactive instead of reactive, right? Proactive means, what I'm explaining it, is fight how you want to fight, regardless of the gear you use, right? And then being reactive is fighting how the enemy wants to fight instead, and it's normally in a way that you don't want to fight. So always try to be proactive, right? I'm sure everyone's always trying to be that, but they forget to use space. They get tunnel vision so much that they let the enemy crowd out all their space. Don't do that unless that's what you really want, right? And then next thing is speed is your next best friend, right? Speed can be used to create more space by either retreating away from the enemy and or killing your enemy speed too with either stun effects, confusion like grass and so on, right? And then the last part of the core strategies is fast in, fast out, right? Complete your objectives quickly before the enemy surrounds you completely. Okay, unless that's what you really want. Okay, now let's go into the specifics of the loadout. Okay, so I forget the name of this passive, right? It's not on my notes right now. Normally I'm a bit more organized than that. But anyway, this armor passive, I believe it's ceremonial robes, right? I'll actually have uh, I'll write down the name of the loadout. I'll write them down in the video description below, right? For anyone who, for the newer players as well, who just want to copy paste and look up more in the wiki exactly what these weapons can do as well. But anyway, this armor passive allows me a plus 30% primary reload speed and just reduces the chance to avoid uh, broken limbs. Now, the second passive, I don't really care too much about. It's really nice. If I had to choose a second passive for this armor, I probably would choose this one. But we're going for the primary reload speed because I'm relying heavily on the Eruptor, the Recoilless, and the anti-tank emplacement to do most of the destroying because the only thing you really want to destroy is the warp ships on the ground for the Repel invasion fleet loadout. Okay, and obviously the Eruptor kills overseers really fast and flesh mobs really fast too. And it's two shots warp ship shields. So one thing I like to do is normally I'll either use the Eruptor to just three shot a warp ship, right? Or I will just use recoilless um, two shots a warp ship. I normally will not use both. I won't try to shoot the Eruptor and a recoilless into the same warp ship unless I really am getting chased by a bazillion zombies and overseers. But typically that doesn't happen. And then we have the P4 Senator. Um, for this mission type, I normally use it, rarely use it. I only use it to kill stray voteless because the Eruptor has shrapnel flying back at you up to 50 or 60 meters every time, and you don't want to use it when a Voltless gets in your face. So that's what the P4 Senator for is, right? Also, it's really good for not senators, it's really good for overseers if they get too close as well. And you don't want to kill yourself because it doesn't matter if you've got stim or not. Sometimes the shrapnel, one piece of shrapnel, will just one shot you from 50 meters away or kill 90% of your health. You don't want that. And then we have the Seeker grenades. Now, one of the most annoying enemies to deal with for the Illuminate, aside from the flesh mobs, right, is the flying overseers because of how fast they are. They fly, they got really good aim sometimes or really bad aim. But this is just purely for the flying overseers because normally your sentries can handle anything else pretty well, right? And then we have the Sentry boost. Again, it's just another Sentry to protect you from zombies, and it's great against any overseers as well, right? Most of these are not designed to kill flesh mobs because they're not really much of a threat, and if they really are, just use terrain, use your Ruptor to three-shot them. Okay? Okay. Now let's go into a little bit more about the fleet invasion strategy because it doesn't matter what mission you play, there is always a strategy. If you haven't found one, chances are you just haven't figured it out. So I'm going to switch between this kind of diagram and this here. Okay. So generally speaking, when you're playing this mission, okay, let's just say you're in the bottom left corner. Okay. Normally that area, the ships around there are going to be easiest to kill. Why? Because they are the closest towards you. Okay. And they're out, and maybe they're out in the open. Now, obviously, the hardest warp ships to kill would be the ones that are furthest away from you. Okay, but let's just say the top two boxes up here, they're roughly the same equal distance away from you. Why would I class one as medium difficulty and hard difficulty? Well, the medium might be open area with no buildings blocking it, but the hard area could just simply they're hidden behind walls and there's plenty of buildings blocking you between the bottom left to the top right quarter. Okay, so even with that, you normally want to stay in an area where there's a lot of open terrain because they're going to be easy to kill from any angle compared to a hard area where there's lots of walls. Okay, now to give you a more visual representation is when you're looking at here, okay, and you only need to study this map when you're playing this mission for about, I don't know, 10 or however many seconds, you'll notice that inside the megacity, there's a lot of buildings. So how can you tell without running around the map where is going to be the open areas, right? AKA where is going to be the easiest place for me to focus on killing ships without having to run around and constantly being chased by 50 bazillion flying overseers, right? Well, it's simply all of these dark rectangles, okay? And we can already see on the right hand side, there's a hell of a lot of them. So we can already tell within like 1 second, that's going to be a hard area or a really difficult area to kill warp ships. Whereas we can see less over on the left side, that's going to be more open areas. Now now I've actually highlighted them. I've actually taken the time to highlight post game to show you what I mean, right? So we can already see around this area up here on the left hand side, like it's really open. So generally speaking, we want to stay here. And the reason for this being, okay, I'm just going to also give you an idea with purple circles of where all the ships were, roughly speaking, as I can remember from memory, roughly of where they all landed. Now, the reason why I'm going into so much detail here is think about this for a moment. If you kill all the warp ships in the bottom left, okay, and all the other spots are full, where do you think the next warp ship is going to land? Is it going to be on top of one of the other warp ships that are already on the ground? No. The game, and in real life as well, they're going to place new warp ships in the areas um, that are open and clear already. AK, if all you did was kill the 5 warp ships in this bottom left, and you didn't touch warp ships anywhere else, the game would keep spawning more warp ships down in this bottom left until there are no more warp ships to destroy. So then you can safely go around the map and start destroying the rest of them without having to worry about warp ships spawning in difficult areas over and over and over again. Okay, and this just really touches into the main strategy or the most effective strategy to complete the fleet invasion, repel fleet invasion mission. You don't need to run around like a madman. You can do that, okay? It can be a hell of a lot of fun, but a lot of people were really frustrated with it. So the best tactic is simply sit and just camp an area. And you could just two-man camp one side of the map, two-man camp another if you're doing four-man team. Because if you're all stuck in one place, 4 players, you probably kill them way too fast, and you might get too bored. But anyway, that is the tactic. Pick an open spot and normally stay there. Okay, maybe sometimes you'd have to move to a different spot, and maybe it's 2 spots you would have to hog. But this is in a very, very dense mega city, right? I've got video links down below to back up everything I've said with actual full-on gameplay footage, and I've done the Repel Fleet Invasion in both open megacity maps and also very dense megacity maps as well. And the one I'm showing you here is the dense megacity maps. Okay, so here's another visual representation of something I want you to pay very close attention to when you're playing this type of mission. So generally speaking, when you're camping at a space, you want a raised platform. The reason why I'm saying this is your sentries, if they get a chance to point their gun at you, they will take every chance to kill you, even when there's an enemy not there. Right? I'm sure many of you have experienced that. And if you're a newer player and you haven't experienced that, it's going to happen hundreds of times. So you don't want to be on the same level as your sentries. You want them either above you, which is practically impossible most of the time, um, or you want them below you. And this is a perfect idea or visual representation of the perfect setup or terrain you want to have when you're in the Repel Fleet Invasion. You want to place the sentries outside on the ground floor where you are on a raised platform so that you can kill any squids that try to get to you because the squids have to go all the way around this building and go up the stairs. They can't just attack you nilly-willy from 360 degrees if you're on an open floor terrain. So normally I'll place the sentries on the entrances and exits to this kind of terrain. And if you don't have this kind of terrain, don't fuss. Okay, don't worry too much about it. Just pick an area with some nice pieces of cover. to protect you also from the Leviathans, because this was during a time when the Leviathans were at their most cancerous. Okay, it was terrible. I believe Arrowhead will have nerfed them by the time of this video, but in short, they were spawning way more often, super accurate, one shots, all that kind of stuff. It wasn't the most fun, especially solo. But anyway, if you can find this type of terrain, great. If not, just hide behind buildings, okay, and have the sentries cover you. Okay, so that's basically it for the Repellent Fleet invasion. Now let's go into what I consider to be the best loadout for the general 40-minute missions. You could do the same for the Blitz missions as well. And it is basically the autocannon support weapon. It is the Emancipator exosuit, and it is the Gatling Sentry and the Machine Gun Sentry. And then we have the Sentry booster as well, right? And then we have the Scout Infiltrator armor. We have the normal sickle gun, which is a war bond weapon. Again, I will write down the exact name and where each of the unique weapons come from specific war bonds, right? I'll post them down below in the video description. And then we have the ultimatum as a secondary, and we have gas grenades as our throwable. And the general tactic you want to use for this is generally, it's very similar or practically identical to the bot loadout video guide, is you want your sentries to lock down their own firing lanes each, and then you could either support the sentries, and normally the way you'll do that is probably use switch to flak rounds with the autocannon to take out the flesh mobs, because they take a while. The sentries take a while to kill them, but they kill anything else insanely fast. And then, yeah, so you could either support the sentries with another sentry, or you could open up a third front. Okay. Okay. So let's moving on is, yeah, again, remember the core strategies, right? I've already talked about them already, so I'm not going to early in the video, so I'm not going to go over it again. Okay. Now, here's how to place sentries in megacities, or cities in general, right? If you've seen the bot video, it's the exact same thing, right? You don't want to deploy the sentries where they have clear fire lanes to every single path that you want to cross over. Make sure you move them just a little bit in so that you could safely cross, because sometimes you might forget, right? So you want to limit how many lanes they can focus on. And also, if you give them too many lanes to focus on, they don't know where to prioritize their targets, because let's just say they're completely surrounded. Um, and you want them to kill enemies. Do you want them to just go willy-nilly kill whatever, or do you want them to focus on opening up a specific path? Most of the time, you want them to open up a specific path. So that's why you put them a little bit in more inwards towards the lanes, so that they have more concentrated fire, so they can actually just do something rather than firing a little bit everywhere, which is not what you want, because that makes them also wildly unpredictable. Of course, always make sure you are not in the same lane as your sentry. Try not to, okay? Because there's like a 1% chance they kill you, and they'll take that 99% of the time. Okay, now here is also another example of just placing the sentry that I've marked in green, not right on the corner. Because if you place it right on the corner, what if a flesh mob comes right around the corner and bitch slaps that sentry? The sentry's not going to have enough time to kill it. But if you place it inwards, by the time that flesh mob comes around the corner, the sentry will have a couple of few seconds to actually hose down the Voltless and whatever else is coming in it, and then the flesh mob. And it also gives you more time to support the sentry by using whatever weapons you want to kill the enemy before they slap your sentry out of existence. Now, also, this is a really risky situation because I'm in the middle of a lane. If the game decides to spawn enemies right behind me, there's nothing stopping that sentry from shooting me down with a fully loaded mech. Okay, so yeah. Anyway, let's move on. Okay, now let's talk also a little bit about loadout synergy. Okay, so for me, the best loadout or any loadout you use must have good synergy. And there are normally four top things that I think about when it comes to synergy. One, what you choose has to cover a weakness that will noticeably affect your gameplay that either you can't cover right now or you can't cover with the loadout you want to use. The second one is ideally your stratagems have to work together, or your loadout has to work together at the same time in most scenarios because if they can't, it's probably a little bit too niched, and it's not really going to help you that much. Okay. Also, don't confuse it with them all trying to do the same thing at the same time because if they're all focused on chaff and you've got nothing to take out big targets, well, it's not very synergistic loadout, right? And then the third one is your stratagems or bits of your loadout have to work with others when the others are on cooldown. So, for example, the mech is really good when everything is on cooldown, right? And it lasts for quite a while too. And then the last one is you want to have a stratagem, ideally that works when the situation is too extreme for your usual tactics. So the usual tactics, as you know from here, is to use sentries and your support weapon, right? But when that's not enough because they've dropped a crap ton of enemies on you, then just whip out the mech, right? That can handle a lot of firepower from the Illuminate and it can dish a lot of firepower out as well, right? Now, I'm sure there are many other ways to consider synergy when it comes to loadout that I might have missed, but to my knowledge and current awareness, this is what I think about most and think is most important when it comes to synergy. Okay. If you've got actually any others that you about synergy that you think I might have missed, let me know in the comments down below, right? And if you're liking this video so far, do be sure to comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff as well. So moving on, we're going to go to a little bit more about the loadout itself. So generally speaking, when you're using a mech, you have about 3 minutes of effective continuous fighting. What I mean exactly by this is firing basically non-stop with no breaks whatsoever. Most players don't play like that, so you could easily stretch it beyond 3 minutes. But generally speaking, is the mechs get more powerful later on in the game because there's less enemies, less objectives for you to complete because you've already completed them. So you can focus on doing more of what a mech does best, killing stuff. You don't have to get out the mech, do an objective later in the game or towards the end of the game. You just focus on killing stuff and staying inside your mech. That's why they get more powerful later on, especially during emergency extraction, where you are cut off completely from stratagems, and the only stratagems you can do are the ones you called down before, because you can't deploy anymore. That's where the mech is perfect. So generally speaking, I'll use mechs to use for the main or side objectives if need be. For example, we have the Scrambler. I think it's called the Scrambler, the one where it shakes up your stratagems arrows, right? So you have to put in different outputs. Sometimes it's a bit annoying to go inside there, so I just use a mech. Or I use the mech to defend the flag, right, in spread democracy missions. And then you have a free mech normally for anything else. And then the autocannon, right? Support autocannon for me is by far the best support weapon. It's been like that since the very first day squids were released. And it's mostly due to the flat crowns, right? It's also got insane synergy with the sentries. I would say the autocannon has the best synergy out of any support weapon out there with the sentries, and I'll explain in a moment. But I mostly use flat grounds to kill the overseers. They can kill them fast. The only thing that can kill overseers faster than a autocannon flat grounds is the wasp, but even then, it's not by much. And it basically slaps over a squid unit as well. And it's really good at ragdolling the harvesters. Okay. And the reason why also is pretty easy to aim with the flat crowns, right? But I switched back to the I think it's called a pet. I don't know how you pronounce it. But anyway, I'm just calling it effect or effect rounds, right? Basically the solid rounds, not the flat rounds, but the solid rounds. You just aim anywhere on a harvester and it'll ragdoll it. Okay, or make it stumble around a little bit. And the reason I do that is so that it buys me more time to reposition, also buys my sentries more time to just kill stuff. Because if you're using any other support weapon, they don't really ragdoll or they can't easily ragdoll a harvester. And the harvester will normally lock on and kill sentries really fast. And there's nothing more disappointing than throwing a sentry and having it die like 2 seconds later, or without it using all of its ammo, right? And you can already see how fast they can shoot for, or how long they can shoot for. So the autocannon flat rounds really good for killing basically any enemy, and the solid rounds are really good at just ragdolling the harvester because I shoot to ragdoll harvesters first, and then I use the time I bought myself to then slowly snipe one of the leg joints, right, or the hip joints of the harvester. And even if I don't kill it, I'll give myself more than enough time to reposition and kill it over time. Okay, yeah, we'll touch more about the time to kill, the TTK of the Sentries later, but as you can see, they're insanely fast, right? Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so I'll give you also another reason why I think this is one of the this is the best build. So with this combo, when I did this footage, I actually didn't measure ping the distance. I think from here it's about 100 at least 100 meters out or 120 meters out, right? And with a sickle and autocannon, I can destroy two of the warp ships on the ground within 14 and a half seconds. I don't need to get caught by hordes and alert hordes near there. There's no Tesla towers to random enemy Tesla towers to one-shot me because I wasn't paying attention. And I don't need to get tunnel vision by getting down there, right? For me, it just gives that very special forces-esque vibe. And I absolutely love this vibe, right? Not everyone likes this, but I just love being able to snipe out ships and targets from that distance with nothing but my primary and my support weapons, right? Um, but yeah, I actually just love this gameplay. I basically giggle at every time I get a chance to do this. And you get many chances to do this. It's just really satisfying. Okay, now let's go over a little bit of the general mech tips, okay? Because some people know how to use them, some people don't, and they're slightly different between using them for bots and squids. So for the mech tips, always shoot to ragdoll harvesters if you're kind of low on shots or you don't want to waste shots, not kill. It's easy and it gives you more time, just like the autocannon support weapon, right? When using the solid rounds. Um, but or you could just rapid fire your autocannons from your emancipated exosuit right into the harvester, right? And yeah, I mentioned harvest ragdoll harvesters give your sentries more time to kill stuff. And then make sure to always fight with a massive piece of terrain between your mech and the sentries to prevent them from killing you. And make sure that terrain, the sentries cannot shoot through them. Okay. And then obviously don't get tunnel vision. Keep your eyes and ears open for bombers in the sky because the bombers, they've got two names. They are either called stingrays or interlopers, right? Why have they got two names? I have no idea. Someone messed up at Arrowhead. Okay. So, but I use them interchangeably here. I'll probably say interlope. I don't know what I say, but you know what I mean now. But normally one pass from a stingray or interloper will be enough to destroy one of the arms of your men. You don't want that to happen, especially when they've got a ton of shots left. Okay, so that's basically the general mech tips. Or actually, I'd say if you're trying to shoot voteless with this, again, I normally try to avoid shooting them. Okay, if there's just like one or two, I would just walk right into them and let the impact damage kill them. But if they're in a giant swarm, then I'll normally, or groups, cluster groups that make it easy to shoot them, then I'll shoot them. But if they're just by themselves, like maybe one or two, I probably won't shoot them. Just to conserve ammo if I'm trying to basically be sweaty, right? If I'm playing casually, I just don't care. Okay, then let's go into a little bit more about the rest of the loadout, right? Passive stratagems. So we have the scout passive to scout the map for objectives, nests, or not nests, but warp ships and patrols, right? And then launch ambushes at your leisure. The reason why I take the normal sickle, not the double edge, is it kills shields as fast as the eruptor. It's got infinite ammo, you have almost no reloads, okay? Because I normally shoot until the target is dead or it's about to overheat, and then I just switch to the autocannon. By the time I finish using the autocannon, the what's it called? Right, the autocannon to kill the or overseers, which kills them within a couple of seconds, right? I can switch back to the sickle and it will be fully cooled down, right? And it keeps switching between this pattern and it's just smooth as butter. And then, yeah, we have the ultimatum. Now, it can one shot overseas and it can one shot unshielded ships from any angle. But the main reason I take it is to destroy walls inside normal cities, not mega cities, but normal cities to create exits. You'll see that whenever I play in normal cities or smaller cities, and it just feels really satisfying when you're able to create an extra exit because the area is too hot, or maybe you're trying to get in and you just don't want to run around the city walls. You just want to run right through it. Okay, so yeah, I normally pick the ultimatum basically for that because I can kill chaff and I can kill overseers very quickly and easily with my sickle and autocannon. And then I have the gas grenades. Yes, it's good at killing Voltless and confusing them, but the incendiary grenades are better for that. I mostly pick the gas grenades purely to confuse the flesh mobs, okay? And it also stalls enemies, in particular, or especially flesh mobs. So it gives my sentries far more time to go and kill them and other stuff as well, right? And then obviously we have the sentry booster, which is basically a backup sentry, right? And normally I will not try to deploy both sentries and the sentry booster at the same time. I will normally keep the support, the sentry booster as a backup when the other sentries are on cooldown. Okay, now, generally speaking, it's pretty easy to go around and complete the Illuminate missions. They're currently by far the easiest faction because they're incomplete. Um, but also, it's the same as fighting any other faction, right? You just move, kill stuff, press a few buttons, kill stuff, evac. But the hardest part of any faction is basically going to be how are you going to complete these spread democracy missions where you have to um, raise a flag of Super Earth. Okay, and each faction has a normally has their own unique version um, or terrain for raising the flag, right? So for the Illuminate, you're normally pretty well exposed. And I feel like I figured out the optimal places to place your sentries. So you're probably very familiar with this. So for here, if you see these green circles, this is where I suggest you place the Gatling or the machine gun sentry. It doesn't matter which side you place them on. And then the blue one is normally where I would suggest that you place um, the sentry uh, booster, right? Now, you might be wondering, why would I place a sentry booster right up so close to where the enemy would drop their troops, right? Because normally you would hang back around the bottom here where I've used the hover pack. The reason for that being is you probably don't need all that ammo, right? If you really need the ammo, you could place them in this raised square here, right, with the two flower beds, if you really wanted to, right? But generally, I'll deploy it a little bit further up, and also because I will normally deploy a mech as well, so I can kill harvesters faster, right? Because most of the enemies are going to be coming up from up north here, so I can just safely either stay back here with my mech and just focus on killing flesh mobs and um, harvesters, whilst the sentries mow down everything else. I can just toss in gas grenades from the back if need be as well. But you normally don't need all that supply. And then we have the next location, right? This is probably one of the easiest locations because the enemy's just funneled in so well, and you have so much cover to protect yourself from flying overseers and harvesters and so on. And all normally the enemy reinforcements they deploy really far away from this location. They're not normally in your face like they do deploy here. Um, and also it's got a raised platform at the back. But again, I will normally place the sentry booster at the very back, okay, where you have most cover, just kind of like a last stand kind of thing. And then I would deploy one sentry on each side. And normally I'm so far back that it's impossible for the sentries to target me. And I'll show you over here, right? At the back here is there is no way any enemy can reach you up here unless the flesh mob decides to hack the game and just walk right through this. I've not seen this happen before. So I guess I'm lucky, but if it's happened to you, then that sucks, right? There's nothing you can do about it. But generally speaking, what I like to do is take this part um, of the flag defending area and just defend here. I most of the time I don't need to do anything, and once it's finished, I can either go back out through one of these exits, or I can just climb out the back here, right, and suffer no damage whatsoever. And normally there's a lot of stims and ammo resupplies and so on here as well. So it's really good. Okay, and then we have quite possibly the hardest place to defend because you're left really exposed. Normally, the enemies they'll normally deploy on all around the corners, making this obscenely difficult because it's very difficult to hide, right? Especially when you have 50 bajillion overseers, flying overseers coming at you. So I normally try to place my sentries, the Gatling Sentry, machine gun sentry, over here. Now, the reason why I place them here and I don't place them out in the open over here is one, it only covers one firing lane across here. Okay. It's way too much. So I place them down here. And the reason being is if I place them out here, they will engage absolutely everything and waste shots and also alert the any passing patrols. I don't want that. Okay. Again, we're trying to aim for efficiency here. So normally I place them down here. So that when the enemy comes along here, um, they will only come here because they detected me, giving me more time and more safety to prep. And also, if there's any flying overseers, if you place a sentry out there, they will normally target the first enemy they see, which is Voltless, not the flying overseers. But the flying overseers will normally fly over terrain. And normally the sentries down here, they will spot the flying overseers first, rather than the Voltless that are currently hidden behind this chunky terrain, right? So that's another reason I place it as well. And also, it protects them quite well from the firepower or the energy beams of the harvesters, right? Because there's more terrain in the way, so it's better at protecting them. Now, where do I place the sentry booster then? Right? Good question. The answer is it doesn't really matter. Okay, you can place them to reinforce, you can place them in the middle, but there is really no optimal place I've found because you can't really tell a lot of times where is the enemy going to deploy on this left side or on this right side, right? So just deploy it wherever you want. But normally within the inside of the train. And again, I will normally have a mech down on the inside around here because no enemy is going to spawn in this location here. Not even warp ships will drop enemies on top of you here unless some watcher manages to actually get in down here, which they won't. Okay. Okay. Now let's go into, I believe this is the final location for raising the flag of Super Earth. So normally speaking, is there is a very steep set of steps up here on the right and the left. And normally there's a staircase over here where there's a crap ton of smoke, but there normally isn't a staircase down over here. So normally I will take this spot here because no enemies can creep up to you from behind. You will always see the enemy before they are able to bitch slap you in the face. Okay, unless you got too distracted, right? Looking for stims on the ground. um, but yeah, again, this is what I feel is the optimal sentry placement because most of the enemies do not deploy right on top of you. They deploy outside, which gives you far more time to protect and defend the flag. Is most of the enemies will come up the stairs from this side. So I place both sentries here, the two most powerful sentries over there, and then I'll place the booster sentry on the backside of this objective that the enemy will normally send the least number of enemies. And normally I'll throw in gas grenades if I feel like I need to cover them, mostly because there are um flesh mobs, right? And then normally I'll just stay back here, right? Um, if the enemies get too close. If not, I might lend my support. Okay, but generally speaking, if you also have a mech up here, don't have it sitting around here. Have it down at this bottom part here. Okay. And also, you get a bird's eye view of a couple of warp ships normally from up here that you can just shoot without any worry as well. Okay. So that's basically it for the tactics for the spread democracy mission. And we'll just go over the tactics for how to fight in megacities. Now, if you've seen the bot video, then you've probably seen this all before, right? So you don't really listen to this, but if this is your first time, I'll go through with it with you right now. So the way to fight in megacities that I suggest is rely on your radar to spot the enemy far more often than just looking down the streets to avoid ambushes and launch your own, right? And it's really important because in the megacity, right, it's really easy to get tunnel vision, which the megacities promote because they've got all these giant ass skyscrapers blocking your view all the time. And the checking your map allows you to see if you're about to be surrounded or not, right? Because this is actually a tactic I kind of picked up, right, just from seeing all those kind of like movies like Black Hawk Down and all the others, where whenever you see movies or even hear about real life combat veterans fighting in cities, the thing they're worried about most is there an enemy behind that door or around that house, right? And they rely heavily on drones and air support to tell them exactly where the enemies are because that's the most OP thing there is. It doesn't matter how many bullets you have if you don't know where the enemy is and where to shoot them. Okay. So yeah, radar is your most OP weapon. Use it. And then when you're fighting in megacities, fight quickly in tight spaces because it's easy to get tunnel vision of the enemy to block off all your limited escape routes. Because in megacities, um, you don't have as many places you can run freely compared to open terrain where you can just run 360 in any direction and just escape the enemy. You don't have that luxury in megacities. And then, generally speaking, you want to fight inside megacities when there are large open spaces where you have the ability to easily see incoming patrols without switching to your radar, because relying on eyesight is always faster to scan where the enemy is in open terrain rather than radar. Right, but obviously it's reversed when you're stuck in tight spaces. And obviously, you have more escape routes. And then number five, avoid staying too close to cars, right? Because they will randomly explode, ragdoll, and kill you. Based on Arrowhead's priorities on fixing the game and what the players want fixed as well, they're never going to fix number five. Okay, it's a very low priority thing. And you can easily avoid it as well. So avoid cars. I hate them. Number six. Um, Always take cover before fighting in case a stray overseer shoots you from a direction you did not expect. Okay, because it will happen, especially when you're fighting with Thief soldiers as well, because you don't always know where the Thief soldiers are going to appear, where and when they're going to fight. So always try to um, get behind some kind of cover, normally speaking. And then number seven, never take cover on the edge of a corner to prevent the enemy from coming around and instantly slapping you the moment they see you around the corner, or have some kind of area of effect weapon and catch you by a stray round. Okay. Um, and or obviously your sentries will gun you down if they're placed near the corner as well. Because your reaction time isn't the speed of light. Okay. And then obviously number eight, avoid the middle of streets and stay near the building or wall at all times where you have more cover and are less exposed to the enemy in your own sentries, right? If you've ever seen the movie Saving Private Ryan, when they're walking, all the soldiers are walking through the countryside in the middle of the road, they only do that sim and actually most military forces will normally walk in roads when they have no other choice, or they're just chillaxing and they're not expecting the enemy to be there. But the moment the enemy opens fire, they know they'll normally split off to the walls because no one wants to have a big ass target, or be big ass target in the middle of the road and be like, shoot me, right? Because you're not invincible, no matter how many stims you jab yourself with. Now, number nine is avoid fighting in the same streets as your sentries, right? I mentioned this before, especially when you're a mech, because there's nothing worse than just having a fresh mech, moving it in, and your sentries instantly destroys it. So, yeah. But yeah, fight in different streets. That's just the safest thing I can say. And then the 10th one is don't be afraid to walk through or walk by a heavily defended objective with your mech whilst destroying everything and coming back later once it is quieter. Because every single objective, no matter what type of map you're on, they have a set number of guards assigned to defend that objective. If you destroy them and ignore the patrols and all the enemy reinforcements because they will just phase out, then when you go back, it'll be all quiet. There'll be no enemies. Okay, if that's how you like to play the game, or you feel like you need to do that because you're just getting into death spirals too much, that's how to do it. Okay. Okay. So that is basically it, right? Now, let me quickly go into what if you don't have all of the equipment I've mentioned so far and you want to try some of these missions, right? So let me quickly go back to the Repel invasion fleet, right? If you do not have everything I've mentioned here, right? Actually, if you're playing the game more than just a couple of hours, you'll actually have everything I mentioned here. You might not have the ATM placement. I can't remember what level you have to be to unlock that. But if you don't have it, don't worry. You could just grab orbital laser if you wanted to instead, or maybe you could grab a strafing run to help protect you better. I wouldn't fuss too much about this last option because if you don't have this gear, chances are you're probably not going to solo. You're going to be with a team, so you'll be well covered. Okay. If you don't have the Sentry booster, don't worry about it. If you don't have this armor passive, don't worry about it. Just pick whatever you want. Okay. Um, again, I'm taking this armor over others because I'm trying to min-max, right? Be as efficient as possible. But if you're more chillaxing, casual, whatever, you can choose another. It's not going to hurt you too much. Now, if you don't have the Eruptor, um, then I would say just pick whatever weapon you want. Okay. It just means that you won't have as many tools as you would like to kill ships from afar. You're just going to have to rely more on the recoilless or the ATM placement. So again, pick whatever you want. If you don't have the P4 Senator, again, I would say pick whatever you want. I've tried the P4 Warrant, and that doesn't destroy the Flying Overseer in one full mag at 13 shots, right? Or is it 12 shots? So again, pick whatever pistol you want. I won't worry too much about it. Same again for the grenade. You could use gas. If you don't have that, again, I won't worry too much about it. Stay behind your sentries, stay behind your bodies, and you'll be fine. And just cover them like normal. And let's go for the 40-minute Illuminate loadout. So what would I suggest you choose if you don't have everything here? Well, just by playing a couple of hours into the game, you will already have everything here except the mech, which you can't get until level 25. If you don't have the mech, choose whatever you want. The mech is probably more of an insurance case than anything else. It becomes a bit more necessary once you try to solo the spread democracy missions to raise the flag of Super Earth. So what would I replace with it? I quite happily just grab an orbital laser if you really want to, even though I'm not the biggest fan of that. But I normally used to use the strafing run instead of the mech, and you can get the strafing run pretty early. Um, so yeah, everything else you get really early. Again, if you don't have the Sentry booster, don't sweat. Just use another Earth one. If you don't have the SE, is it 70 or 74 armor? It's gonna bug me if I don't know what it's called. Ah, I didn't write it. Well, I'll write it down in the video description below, right? But if you don't have this scout armor, which is on the 7th page of the 10-page free war button, again, don't sweat it, okay? Just play, uh, use other armors, whatever. I wouldn't really sweat about it. And for the sickle, I believe it is a war one weapon, I think. If you don't have it, you could use diligence rifle, right? I absolutely love the diligence rifle, and the only reason I don't take it is because um it just needs ammo, right? It's ammo hungry compared to the sickle, which basically has infinite ammo. So, yeah, any marksman rifle is pretty good. There's so many viable choices for primaries if you don't want to use that, but consider synergy as well, right? But again, diligence rifle is pretty fine. A lot of rifles, I would say, are also fine as well. Now, if you don't have the ultimatum, again, do remember that I only chose this purely to help destroy walls in cities, and also just destroy warp ships from behind once they have no shields. Because that's how the devs want you to play, even if it might be bugged out and you can destroy them with shields one shot. But that's not the intention of the devs. If you don't have the ultimate and you don't want to use it, don't sweat it. Okay, just pick whatever you want. For the grenades, um, you could pick stun, you could pick gas. Again, I wouldn't sweat too much about it. It just allows you to synergize better with your sentries and protect you and your sentries better against flesh mobs. So if you want to use something else, like by all means. But yeah, the core loadout is simply as long as you have two of these sentries, you could basically pick whatever else you want, right? If you really wanted to go wacky, I'd say at the very least try to pick the machine gun and the Gatling sentry, and then use whatever you want. Okay. Okay. Now, with that being said, let's go over like why I didn't choose anything else. Okay. And if you're liking this video so far, uh, would really appreciate you giving a like, sharing it, commenting it for the algorithm because I don't have a consistent upload schedule. I just post basically whenever I feel like it, when there's a new challenge to conquer, that people would love to know how best to beat it. Okay. So let's see. So I'm going to give you, before I go into why I didn't choose anything else, I'll give you my general thought process into it. So, as you know, there's a lot that goes into picking the loadout and stratagems if you really put your mind to it, right? If you're trying to find the best gas loadout or the best fire loadout, or maybe just the best loadout in general, okay? There's so many options to choose from. And generally, here's how I think about when I'm trying to figure out what is the best loadout is all the stratagems weapons need to be able to survive two very different scenarios when you're trying to accomplish a mission. AKA, my mission here is to figure out what's the most effective, or basically min-maxing, is scenario one. How do the weapons, the stratagems, and loadout, how does it handle when you're calm and you can do whatever you want? aka the ideal scenario. And number two, how does it handle the worst case scenario, aka when you're fucked? Okay. How effective and efficient is it under both circumstances? Because the MG Sentry um, can do very poorly under your fucked scenarios. Okay, because maybe you're just being chased by by a bajillion flesh mobs. Okay, and we know the MG Sentry takes way too long to kill them. So do you have anything else that can easily kill them? Or do you not need to have another stratagem or weapon to kill them? You can simply just maneuver out the way, climb up a surface and avoid them because they will no longer turn into burrowers and face through walls and so on, right? Because sometimes the best way to handle a situation, a fucked up situation, isn't gear, it's basic positioning. Okay. Um, But yeah, also you've got to consider how often do the weapons and the stratagems so on, how often do they encounter the nightmare scenario and the ideal scenario, right? You also got to take that into account as well. And basically, how avoidable is it, right? And all it boils down to again is how much pressure can the weapon or stratagem you've chosen take um, under the most common scenarios you find yourself in. Okay. But yeah, that's basically it. And what I'm gonna do when I'm gonna go over why didn't I choose anything else is I'm basically gonna see, hey, can it improve it? If so, how? If not, why not? Okay. Okay, so let's go into it. Okay, so we have the orbital precision strike. I already have AT with the ultimatum, and it's a bit finicky to land on to land on harvesters, right? Because I can't remember if you can stun them. I don't think you can stun them because you can't stun Bile Titans. You can stagger Bile Titans with the Urchin Grenade. That's the only thing that can stagger them that I am aware of, aside from maybe autocannons, I think. But yeah, the only other reason you might take them, the Orbital Precision Strike, is maybe to kill warp ships, but then again, there's so many other weapons and ways to kill warp ships that don't require full stratagem. So yeah, I wouldn't choose that. And then you have the orbital Gatling barrage again. Um, what would that replace? Okay, or what role would that focus in on? If you're taking out shields, well, you've got the autocannon flak rounds that can take it out, right? And I use the autocannon flak rounds most of the time on the autocannon. I barely use the solid rounds for the autocannon, and that's only to destroy ships and kill harvesters, right? And kill Tesla towers. But again, I would always take the Sentry, even though they over the orbital Gatling barrage over that, simply because it's not focused in one spot. And if I want to focus in one spot, I've got gas grenades, right? I can unload the autocannon as well. Um, but yeah, it just covers too short of a range. Okay, same thing with the airburst launcher as well. It's lower AP, um, And I have all the ch anti-chaff I have. One, right, with sentries, and they can cover so many different directions as well. And then we have the orbital napalm barrage. Now, I've used it against squids quite a lot in the early days. But again, what is the point of taking it? Right? Again, it's the handle chaff. It doesn't really do well like handling warp ships or heavy units or flesh mobs as well. A lot of time when you're throwing in that orbital barrage, you're blocking off an entire area that you can easily engage and clear out enemies far quicker with sentries and your buddies as well. And also, it's a little bit finicky inside megacities because it doesn't go straight down. It's launched from the destroyer and it could be at an angle and it could hit cities, it could hit skyscrapers as well. So I generally don't recommend it. Um, I think there's a 120 millimeter orbital barrage. Again, um, it's like, what would you focus that in on, right? If you want to, are you going to try and take out a couple of warp ships? If so, you could easily just grab 500 kg and be far more um, deadly with that, right? I think I've tried it in the fleet invasion missions. It wasn't that great. Um, but yeah. And then we have the orbital walking barrage. Again, you could use it. It's like a use and forget stratagem. But generally speaking, if I'm in a fleet invasion mission, I'd rather just go with AT emplacement, recoilless, and eruptor, right? Um, because the range, I can reach them all without having to use an orbital barrage. And on the 40-minute missions, again, you could use it if you want to do it for fun, but what would you replace it with? Right? You could probably swap it for the mech, swap the mech for it if you wanted to. Same thing with a 380 orbital barrage. Again, you don't need that kind of heavy barrage because most of our units are chaff, or their units can easily dodge the 380 millimeter orbital barrage. And then you've got the orbital rail cannon, right? Again, um, if you don't have a way to reliably and quickly take down harvesters, and normally there's more than one, you could choose the orbital rail cannon. But if you're going to choose it, you're probably more choosing it for just random memes and so on. Most people don't take that. Now, for orbital laser, um, I would say you could take it instead of the mech if you really wanted to for more fun. But in terms of efficiency, is you only get three uses, and you got to think about what is the most optimal way, or what's the most often way that you're going to use it? And can you do something just as good? Yes, you can, with like sentries to take down hordes of voteless. I don't know how quickly they kill flesh mobs. But again, there are so many weapons to kill them quickly. Like the mechs, the autocannon, um, the wasp, and so on. I know strafing one doesn't do it though, right? And we'll touch upon that later. But generally speaking, if you want to use it, then I would probably replace the mech for it, or you could replace a sentry if you really wanted to. Um, but again, it doesn't really fulfill, it doesn't do any roles that I would consider better. And even if it did, it doesn't do it in a way that is noticeable or meaningful enough to choose that option over the others. Because by the time you deploy it, the orbital laser, you could have deployed like five sentries by then, right? And three mechs are far more useful than three orbital lasers. We've got the orbital uh, stun strike, yeah, I'm not even going to talk about that. It's just unnecessary. You got gas grenades, right? Same thing with the gas strike. I believe the shell itself can destroy warp ships, right? But then again, why are you relying on it to destroy warp ships? Every time I see someone make the point that, oh yeah, I take it because it can destroy warp ships. It's like, if you wanted to destroy warp ships, why not just take the 500 kg instead, right? And take gas grenades, because most people love using gas grenades. And if you're using gas strike, you probably love and want to use gas grenades anyway. So it kind of renders gas strike kind of obsolete, right? But again, if you want to use it for funsies, then by all means, but there are far better ways to kill ships or kill chaff as well with sentries. Smoke, yeah, I'm not going to focus on that. If you want to hide away from Leviathans, just use cover, right? Or activate the SAM site. But yeah, it's just not worth it. 500 kg, the only way I can think of using it is again, it can be a little bit tricky to kill harvesters with it. I think it's just because of the way it's coded, it can be a little finicky. But again, if you're going to kill warp ships, why not use an ultimatum instead? Because especially in your mega cities, the flight path of Eagle One isn't always the way you want it to be, and sometimes it'll hit a building instead. If you're in a forest, that 500 kg will not penetrate through a forest unless you destroy the trees around it. So I wouldn't recommend it. Just use an ultimatum instead, or any, or recoilless, or an autocannon to destroy ships instead. Then the strafing run. Strafing run just works in basically any terrain except megacities, where Eagle One just doesn't fly properly. But even then, it's like, why? What are you going to use it to kill? Chaff? Because it can't one shot um, flash mobs. I don't think you can even two shot them, if I remember correctly from my testing. I used to use the strafing run and two sentries in the autocannon. Mech is just better because offensively, I don't need it. A lot of times when I was using strafing run and sentries, I found that I use a strafing run to kill my sentries targets, which doesn't help, right? Because then my sentry is useless. So I just let the sentries do their job, and I just let the mech help me out with hairy scenarios and defending objectives. Um, and then we have also, no, we have Eagle Napalm, right? Um, you could use it to kill a lot of chaff, but it doesn't really kill flesh mobs. And sentries are better at killing chaff and flesh mobs. And the sentries can target interlopers or stingrays as well. So I don't see why, like, it can't replace sentries, right? Because it's just chaff. So yeah, and then you've got the airstrikes. They are terrible in forests. They're terrible in mega cities because especially when it's really clumped up because of Eagle One pathing issues that never going to get fixed, right? Let's be honest. So yeah, if you're trying to hit heavy targets, what heavy target are you trying to hit? Lots of the ships are surrounded by skyscrapers, making it really hard to hit. And you could try to hit harvesters, but sometimes it can be hit and miss. Um, Just bring a mech instead. And then you have cluster bombs. Again, sentries are better. Just straight up better for killing a lot of chaff. And they can target interlopers too. And then you have, actually, no. That symbol up here is, I think it's 110 millimeter rocket pods, right? That's the Eagle Napalm. Uh, Rocket pods, I'm trying to remember because it's been so long since I used them for squids, but I think the only targets you use to take down is ships and harvesters, but there are so many better ways to destroy harvesters. Machine guns, heavy machine guns, autocannon, recoilless quasar. There's so many better options as well. Most people prefer those options because they're a lot more satisfying because it's in your own hands compared to the rocket pods. So yeah. And then we have smoke. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about smoke again. Okay, now let's talk about supply. One true flag. If you want to use it, right, by all means. And then I'm just going to cover the machine guns in general. They're great at chaff, but the autocannon is just better at chaff. Okay. The only way that the machine guns and the stalwart are better against chaff or flesh mobs than a autocannon is that they don't have shrapnel flying back at you that can decapitate you within 50 meters at random intervals, right? Um, yeah. Actually, I believe the normal machine gun, you have to be stationary to reload. The stalwart is the only one where you can run and reload at the same time. So they have that against them. But if you want to use that, like by all means, but they take freaking forever to kill um flying overseers over range of over say 50 or 60 meters, which is most of the time because of massive recoil. And you could go pro bone. Is it pro bone? Prone position, right? Um, but again, the autocannon is just far better over range, and also they have massive issues with trying to kill flesh mobs. So yeah, that's why people don't use them as much. But yeah, okay. Then we have the railgun. Oof. Where do we start with the railgun? Is most of the support weapons people love using. They're good at taking down flesh mobs, harvesters, interlopers really quickly. Um, but or they're good at taking down chaff. The railgun can't do either one of those roles better than recoilless, or autocannon or machine gun, in general, right? So railgun doesn't really see much use. I mean, you could still use it, if you wanted to, but it's not very popular on the squid front, at least from what I've seen from playing all those random games. And then we have the gas spear gun. Um, it feels more like a meme weapon for squids, right? Because the gas effects takes too long and it can't one shot. As far as I remember, it can't one shot flesh mobs. Um, and most people will rely on sentries or their primary or any other weapon to kill the voteless anyway. And if you want to use gas, people normally just bring gas grenades instead, or use pyrotech grenades or incendiary grenades instead. So, but again, if you were to use that, I mean, you could and just swap out gas grenades with something else, but you probably want some way to kill flesh mobs really quickly, right? Because even if they're confused, they will still slap the closest enemy target, which could be your sentries. You don't want that. AMR really struggles to kill flesh mobs. Takes a while to aim for stingrays. It just takes way too long to aim down the sights to kill overseers and so many other enemies without being too tunnel visioned, right? But again, you could still use it. And then we have the epoch. Um, the epoch's a bit of a mess right now. Um, yeah, I don't know how to rate the epoch. I would say just avoid it, right? If you like using the epoch, like by all means. But I just don't rate it very highly as it does take a while. Yeah, I think it can kill you, right? I just don't rate it very highly. If I wanted to use explosive effect and just kill stuff really fast as well, pick a grenade launcher, right? It is amazing against flesh mobs and ground units. It sucks against targeting flying overseers. It's not good against um harvesters as well, right? De-escalator, same thing again, but it takes slower to reload. It's not so great against the heavier targets like the harvesters and flying overseers as well, because normally they fly way too high to be effective. Flamers and sterilizer are way too close range, so I wouldn't choose it. I can never figure out what the icon difference between laser cannon and quasar cannon is. So I'm just gonna say, why? Guys, why can't we have different icons? They look identical. Okay, I'm just gonna say laser cannon, go for chaff. I don't think it can kill flesh mobs quick enough, so that's why people don't use it. They'll normally take quasar, but again, it just takes too goddamn long to wait for the recharge to kill their heavier targets. So again, um, your machine guns and uh, your wasp and so on, and autocannon are far faster. The arc thrower. Um, Max range of 52, not good. Um, and it's not so great against heavier targets. Actually, I think it can kill flesh mobs decently fast. But the range is really awkward. And I'll explain more about that in a minute. We have the commando. It's a bit finicky to aim because if you miss even one shot, you're stuck and you've got to wait for about what 2 minutes and 20 seconds for another cooldown to take down heavy targets. Not worth it. You've got Wasp, you've got autocannon, you've got machine guns, heavy machine guns to take out so many enemies. Oh, yes, the ah, napalm. I think it's napalm airburster. I can't remember the exact name, but I have to admit this gun is kind of fun against the squids, but it's not so good against taking down harvesters as far as I can remember. Um, so yeah, it's more of just a like fun, don't give a fuck weapon. And then you've got the silos. I can't remember if they can one-shot harvesters. They should be able to, but again, it's just super niche, right? You're better off just bringing a 500 kg if we're being honest, or a commando or eats, uh, because its firepower is just unnecessary, right? And the cooldown is way too goddamn long. Autocannon, well, autocannon's king, right? Airburst launcher, great. I think it two shots flesh mobs. Just make sure enemies don't get too close, right? But it's a pain in the ass to kill flying overseers with, I think. I don't use it much, I'll admit, for squids, but The fact that it takes way too long to reload between shots and it can't kill a harvester easily, is why I don't take it, right? And then we have the spear. The spear has its funny off and on cycles, right? It's sometimes they break the locking mechanism, but it takes too goddamn long to kill stuff between reloads, especially when you're trying to defend objectives, especially when you're trying to do solos. So it's not, and it just can only lock on to big targets, right? Um, yeah, it's a very niche role, right? Now, speaking of niche roles, we have the spear. No, we have the spear. We have the wasp. Okay, so I'm gonna go into here actually. Uh, okay, so with this one, I would say I'm going to go into more detail about the wasp in a moment. I'm going to touch upon that later. Recoilless has the same problem as the spear, although it's quite fun to use. Um, for normal 40-minute missions, I would say actually it's now got the cluster rounds, right? Or the flak rounds, so you could still use it, but it's like a much slower version of the autocannon with more armor pen. And against the squids, the most important thing is rate of fire more so than anything else to take down all the chaff in every direction, to kill the bullet sponges um of the flesh mobs, and to quickly switch from ground to air targets as well and take down shields. So recoilless is not ideal unless you have it synergized with another primary weapon to quickly take down chaff and shields. And then we have the supply pack, right? Again, if you want to take it by all means, but generally speaking, you can call down resupplies. There's so many ammo boxes lying around the map all over, so I don't take it. The nuke, right? The hell bomb is just a meme weapon. Warp pack, I mean, you could use it. It's faster over flat land than a jump pack, right? Would you believe it? It's insane. Um, but I still wouldn't take it simply because I figured out pretty early on is that if you just watch the map and you watch where you go and where your enemies are, you don't need that extra movement. You really, really don't. Um, Again, if you want to use it, by all means, right? Hover pack, you're just a sitting duck for flying overseas and harvester laser beams, and interlopers, stingrays too. Jump pack I've used before. I've done a similar run with that, I believe, or not. But again, same reason I wouldn't take it as the warp pack. Bubble shield, I've used that as well. Same reason why I wouldn't take it against bots as well. Just focus on better positioning. Okay, if you want to use it early on, like by all means, but with just a little bit better positioning, moving out the way of enemies, thinking a little bit more before you fight, not just charging headlong all the time, you don't need it at all. And then we have the guard dogs. Actually, before we go into the guard dogs or the dogs, I'm going to talk about the FRV, the forward reconnaissance vehicle. Again, you could take it just for memes or to help out with the team in team games. But again, you don't really need it, especially when you're trying to do solo challenge runs. Unless you're kind of speed running, right? Then you probably do want it. And then I take the Emancipator exosuit over the Patriot exosuit because it's just far more versatile, right? If you lose one arm, you don't lose all your anti-tank, right? Or you don't suddenly lose all of your anti-chaff. Um, but yeah, let's go into the dogs, okay? So if you remember at the start, well, near the start of this video, I talked about range is your best friend. Okay, is let's compare the range, the max range of engagement for various different stratagems and so on, right? So this is throwing range with the scout armor, which basically offers you no throwing benefits, right, over flat terrain. If you stand still, it's 44 meters. You can throw the stratagem ball. If you're running, it's 52. I'm eyeballing this, right? It might be a few meters off. Generally speaking, you have the throwing range, and then you have the range of the sentries. Okay, at the top, you have sentries, strafing runs, and then you have the um what's it called again? The seeker grenades, right? Which is quite far, but the reason why I write between 50 and 70 meters is the range is a bit off sometimes, right? It's really weird. But if you just throw it and it hangs around like a buddy around you, the normal range when it just follows you around of engaging enemies is normally 50 meters. Arc throw is again 50 meters. Um, 40-meter throw. Why have I written that? It's basically. That might be the diameter, but either way, it's going to be whatever your throwing range is, which is not very far compared to the strafe and run or the sentries, right? Which is going to be, say, 40 or 50 plus 100 and plus 175. And now the general range of any dog is going to be about 20, sometimes 32-meter range. And my question is, do you really want to wait until your enemies are that close, or do you want to handle them before that? Because if you're surrounded by voters before them, you can easily outrun them, outdodge them, without really trying, without having to use light armor. You can just run away before they swipe you, or you can dodge their swipes basically by running out the range of their swipes and just climb up and use your primary weapon or whatever weapon you want to use to kill them. Um, those who favor guard dogs, like either they're doing it because they love it, or their spatial awareness is basically as close to zero as possible because they don't check the map properly. And also, if you're thinking about it, if you're surrounded by Voltless, do you really need to kill them? Right? If we're just talking in terms of efficiency, do you really need to kill them with a guard dog? Or could you just run around a corner, let them clump up, and then fire at them with whatever primary weapon you have, or just throw a gas grenade, right? You don't need an extra stratagem for efficiency in for the guard dog to handle that. But again, if you want to use a guard dog, or you just love using guard dogs or any type of dogs, like by all means use it, right? And then we have the arc primary weapon, which is a ridiculously short range. Again, you don't want to wait, um, let the enemy get that close because if your strategy is to kill flying overseers with this as well, with the dogs, the flying overseers can engage you from over 100 meters range. And if you're relying on the dogs to kill them with a 32-meter range from you, they're going to have so many shots at you, it's not going to be a fair fight. Okay. And again, the problem with most of the stratagems outside the sentries is the range is too short. Okay. And that goes into the meme. Yes, it's short. Okay. You're way too short. Um, yeah. If you hold a grudge against me for that, then write another grudge. Okay. It's just too short. Okay. Now, uh, we talked a lot about distances, right? Gauging distances of how close or how much space you want to put between you and the enemy. Because you're probably not going to check or you might forget in game to check. I thought I'd just shoot a few screenshots of showing you the different ranges, right? Just so you get a different idea, a good idea of the different ranges, right? We have 39, 77, 122 as well, right? Personally, if I want to engage flying overseers, I would rather kill them. It doesn't matter if I'm behind cover, mega cities, or open terrain. Generally speaking, you probably want to kill them at the 77 meters, right? 122, that'll be great, right? That's pure wasp heaven. But generally speaking, you probably want to engage them at 77 meters instead of 39, because then they're way too accurate, right? You're way too exposed. And you're going to panic a lot more as well. Panicking is fine for meme moments, but you don't be panicking 100% of the time because then you're probably just not having fun because you're exhausted, right? Again, aiming down the sights of the autocannon 140, 92, and 46 as well. This one, I believe, is with the heavy machine gun. You can already tell it's a hell of a lot harder to aim as well over range. No one's ever really going to engage over 140 meters, right? Even with the autocannon. But again, I just want to give you a sense of gauging distances, and also just taking into account like context for it when you're deciding what is the ideal sweet spot that I should have in terms of amount of space between me and the enemy. Okay, and again, I'm going to show you the different ranges between 50 meters, which is arc thrower range. Okay, and then we have 32 meters, which is normally dog range. Okay, guard dogs, gas dogs, whatever it be. Um, oops, right? It's like that's insanely close, right? The chances of most players wanting to engage flying overseas at that range instead of further away is very small, right? I think we can agree on that. You would rather engage them further out like that because that means they would have had less time to try and shoot and kill you, right? So, yeah. And most players just want to kill flying overseas way before they get even that close. Again, I'm going to give you another representation with flying overseas this time, right? That's super close, right? You don't want to you don't want your guard dog to be able to just shoot them once they get that close, right? And speaking of guard dogs, is here's something a lot of players do not consider. Okay, when they're trying to figure out like the most efficient loadouts for guard dogs, and that is how long is the engagement time of guard dogs? Okay, so what I mean by that is the guard dog by itself, the one with the Liberator gun, I believe, is it shoots for 5 seconds and then it takes 10 seconds to go back to your backpack, fold, reload, unfold, hover, aim, and shoot. That is ridiculous, right? 5 second shooting, 10-second reload. And then again, and it can't even prioritize the targets that you ping. And also, if you're trying to focus on having it shoot down flying overseers, do you know how often flying overseers shoot? Flying overseers shoot for 1 second, right? They shoot like 4 or 5 times in 1 second. Then they reload in almost 2 seconds. Okay. So they shoot roughly 5 times every 3 seconds. By the time your guard dog has shot and then reloaded, the overseer would have had a chance to shoot at you about 5 times, 5 different instances, and it would be able to shoot like 25 shots at you. By the time the guard dog has reloaded in 10 seconds, the flying overseer would have had the chance to shoot at you 4 times, 4 bursts of 4 to 5 shots. That is insane when you think about it. Right, sure, you could try to run behind cover, but don't you want to kill them faster, right? If that is your intention, right? So yeah, that is why I am heavily, 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 heavily against guard dogs or any kind of dogs when we're talking about efficiency. Again, if you just want to have fun because you like have fun with any types of dogs because that's what you like, then by all means. But in terms of efficiency, the dogs are one of the worst options out there. Okay. So then, yeah, and again, a autocannon will quite comfortably take out that target with flat rounds. You don't really need to aim at that range and beyond as well, right? Oh yeah, and then we have zooming in 32 meters, 50 meters, just to give you an idea. What gun is that? Actually, don't know what gun is that. Uh, but again, just thought I'd give you an idea of what it looks like through scope. 32 and 50 meters. I think this is the no, this is the sickle aim down sights, right? Again, just to give you an idea of what that looks like as well, because I think you might be interested. Okay, now let's do a quick comparison of the autocannon flak rounds and wasp, right? Because normally speaking, if you're seeing like best builds for the Illuminate across other channels as well, you normally know that wasp is normally pushed as one of the leading candidates, right? Um, but let's do a breakdown, right? In short, the autocannon flak rounds, which are so easy to aim, you might as well aim with a wasp as well. But generally speaking, the wasp wins against the autocannon in terms of speed and ease to kill over 70 meters in open terrain. But again, as you can see by the numbers, again, I'm eyeballing these numbers, by the way. I might be like a microsecond off, but the point is the wasp only wins by speed. By only a small amount within 70 meters, right? And again, let's go back to the range. 70 meters further isn't that much distance, right? Isn't that much further than that. And it's really easy to aim with the autocannon flat grounds, right? If you don't know how easy it is, try it out, right? You don't even have to be pinpoint target. If you're using solid rounds, the APET rounds, it's so much harder. You miss so many shots. Um, but yeah, now if you're trying to engage targets beyond 70 meters, which the Wasp just wins hands down, it's like, do you really need to? Because most of the time you're engaging units beyond 70 meters, especially against squids. You're either messing around and just having fun and making memes, or you're running away because there's way too many of them chasing you and you're just trying to reposition. Because in any other scenario, the autocannon flak round wins against the Wasp hands down. It's not even a contest, especially in city terrain, tight spaces, and hordes of mixed enemies. Because the Wasp, it can only target specific enemies like Wasp, like flesh mobs, interlope, like the heavy targets. The autocannon can handle anything. And also, more often than not, if you shoot, say, 10 shots, if you shoot, say, 5 shots into a target, um, and it dies in 3 shots. Those last 2 shots will normally hit the target that you chose, right? So even if it can kill them super fast by just spamming the fire trigger, you probably won't do that because you want to see that, hey, has a target died before the Wasp auto-targeting switches? By that time, you could have killed the enemy with the autocannon in under 70 meters just as fast, if not faster. And also, the Wasp is shooting is highly unpredictable, especially, and you notice it more in tight spaces because you don't know if the next shot will it come out on the far left, the far right, or far up, right? Um, so that makes it really hard to judge. But in out and open terrain, the ease of use just feels so much better and easier, right? And again, if you want to use the Wasp, okay, because you really enjoy it, by all means. I'm just talking about in terms of like stress testing as far as possible. The Wasp does insanely well against squids. Okay, but if you want to focus on like efficiency above all, then I highly advocate autocannon flak rounds above Wasp. It's not no contest. Okay, let's move on. Actually, have I covered every single? Oh yeah, I haven't covered directional shield. Bubble shield is just better, right? Because it's always active and on and so on. So, okay, that's basically all of that. And then let's talk about the defensive stratagems. Okay, so yeah, I've used the sentry, the flame sentry. At some point, I've actually experimented with just 2 sentries, 3 sentries, and 4 sentries. And having more than 2 sentries just feels a bit too OP, right? The Flame Sentry is nice, but it doesn't do so well against flesh mobs because they'll normally slap it out of existence. The Flame Sentry doesn't have the same range as the Gatling or Machine Gun Sentry to take down flying overseers and interlopers and stingrays and so on, which is why I wouldn't choose it as well. And then obviously you also have the rocket sentry. Now, the reason why I don't take the rocket sentry or the autocannon sentry is because they stop firing when enemies get within 11 meters of them. And when you think about it, one of the most common enemies in the against the Illuminates is going to be the Voltless, and they always surround your sentries no matter what. So they get shut down very quickly without even being destroyed, which is a pain in the ass, which is why I don't take them, right? And again, I don't take mortars because they're too unpredictable. You can't accurately predict or force them to fire on certain targets like you can do with the machine gun sentry and Gatling sentry by just narrowing their firing lane. And then the bubble shield or the shield generator. Again, the only reason you'll probably do that is a defense mission, or maybe there are way too many Leviathans and you want to support your team. But generally speaking, you can just hide behind cover and protect yourself. So that's why I don't do it. And now for AET emplacement, of course, you know why I choose it for the Repel fleet invasion. But for the normal 40-minute missions, yes, you could use it. What would I replace with it? For it, I'll probably replace the mech, but um, it can be a bit tricky because certain locations for us raising the flag, you are just too exposed from way too many directions, which is why I prefer the mech, right? And it's very easily killed by interlopers, leviathans if they get a shot on you. Sometimes they won't, but I just prefer being more mobile, right? Over just being so static all the time. I let my sentries be static. And then Machine Gun Sentry again is great. I've tried it along with the sentries. It suffers the same problems as the 18 placement, except the 18 placement is faster at killing heavies, right? Than the heavy machine gun emplacement, but not by much, right? And then we've got the Tesla Tower. Um, the Tesla Tower, I'm trying to remember. I've tested it against the flesh mobs, but if you have 2 flesh mobs coming at it, normally if there's more than that, the Tesla Tower will become overwhelmed because it's not spamming those lightning bolts or Tesla bolts, whatever, every single second, right? And it's not targeting everything around it. It just picks a spot like lightning, right? It's not like an area of effect weapon, so it can get overwhelmed pretty easily. But again, the biggest problem it has is lack of range compared to the Sentry. So I'll always choose the Sentries over it. And if I need to slow down targets, I just got gas grenades instead. And then we have the mines. So I've tried all sorts of mines, and if I was to choose a mine, I'll probably say choose gas mines because the damage from them is just not as reliable, right? You've got to think about synergy. And if you're going to use gas mines, you're probably either stalling them for your teammates and for yourself or stalling them for your sentries, right? You're not looking for pure damage because out of all the out of all the mines out there, gas mines is king, right? The ability to just constantly damage and confuse enemies is just unparalleled. So if you're going to choose mines, I'll probably choose gas mines. And if you're going to use them, you could replace the mech with them, but again, that's only for like random fun. If we're being more serious about this, I won't choose any of the mines. Just not that efficient. They lack range and so on as well. Okay, so this is a graph I did quite a while back on TTK, right? Time to kill. And you can see um, where this was actually created quite early on when I was just trying to figure out what is the fastest way to kill flying overseers, right? Because they annoyed a hell of a lot of people, and I'm sure they annoy a lot of people now. And if you look at, and I've chosen pretty much like the best options here, the fastest options. And if you look down here, again, I'm eyeballing these numbers. It might be like a microsecond off or so on, but the it should be pretty accurate in terms of standing from best at the top. If you can see, the ones that I've underscored in red, they are like the top 4, 5 fastest options out there. The reason why I put strafing run as 0.1% second is I've written that as if I'm timing from the point it lands. But in reality, if you count in the throwing time, strafing run is probably going to be all the way down near the bottom, right? So out of all the options, like generally speaking, if you can kill flying overseas insanely fast, you can probably handle the rest of the enemy really easily because they're just small zombies and massive zombies, right? Who require line of sight to smack you in the face with their hands, the meaty hands. So yeah, like this is another case of why I think the Sentry autocannons and so on is by far the strongest loadout against squids because they just kill targets so much faster than anything else. Okay, let's talk about armor passives. Okay, so yeah, you're not really going to be taking this unless you're just going full gas loadout. It's more of a meme. Again, you don't really need to take that if you're spamming stims all the time. Um, the enemy doesn't really have arc damage. It's more or less to protect you and your teammates from your own arc weapons and so on, right? I also used to use this quite a bit. It's quite fun. And you can use it by all means. It's very viable, especially if you're going to use machine gun, heavy machine gun, stalwart, or you're going to use autocannon as well. Highly recommend it. But the reason why I choose the scout passive is simply because I value more information than I do with this. And most of the time, when I'm shooting with the autocannon anyway, I'm kneeling down on my knee, which gives me far more recoil. And just having this doesn't really make much of a difference. And I don't really need more grenades because if you think about it, what's the difference between 4 and 6 gas grenades? It really isn't much, right? 4 gas grenades, and you can just find them lying across all over the place with resupply and so on. It doesn't really make much in terms of add much in terms of efficiency. Provide higher armor rating, just get better positioning, right? Um, yeah, I would choose engineering kit over fortified, because they don't really have explosive damage. The squids don't, right? And if you're blowing yourself up too often, then just aim better, right? Again, fire is more for your own benefit. If you're going to use the double-edged sickle, just for memes, and if you just love using stims, right, by all means use that. Again, this is more of meme for Pete Physique. Yeah, I've already talked about why I choose this in all my other videos, for the bug video as well. And yeah, the decreased detection range, like if you've ever watched my videos and wonder why some of my enemies will just look at me and not do anything, even though I'm so close, this is one of the reasons why. It makes a massive difference. like most people will be detected within 30 meters, but I'll be detected within about what 21 meters instead. So it's a 9 meter difference. That makes a massive difference to the gameplay, at least what I've noticed. And again, I just ping so around the map so I can see more enemies beyond the original like 75-meter range provided by the map. And then throwing range, I've used this as well. Like if you want to use it because you just love throwing secret grenades or stratagems, by all means, like you could use it, but it's not the best option. It's like a fun option. Uh, yeah, this is just lazy. Just if you want higher armor, just position better, or just wear heavy armor if you really want to. Um, mm, 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 mm. Okay, so yeah, so you for Repel Fleet Invasion uh mission, you could choose this. But again, I don't rely too heavily on my primary weapon, and the reason for that being is um out in 40-minute missions is because your stratagems and your support weapons can normally kill all your other targets far faster than your primary weapon. So why would you rely on your primary weapon, even if it's the Eruptor, to kill all the heavy and the harder targets? It just doesn't really make sense. Um, yeah, so yeah, that's why I don't really understand when people really say Eruptor is by far the best primary for the 40-minute squid missions. It just isn't. Factually, it just isn't at all, not even close. Because so many other weapons and stratagems just perform far better at killing stuff and faster too. Again, this is just memes. I'm not going to go over all of them. Yeah, that's meme. No one really focuses on sidearms, so that's meme. Oh yeah, so this is the reinforce epaulet. Ugh, I can't pronounce that second word, but this is the one that I've chosen for the Repel Fleet Invasion. Okay. Uh, over this because I don't need the increased ammo capacity when I'm constantly grabbing so many rounds from resupplies and so on for the Repel Fleet Invasion. The reason why I take this for the Repel Fleet Invasion is not for the melee, but just so that I can survive hits and not and broken limbs from the Leviathans constantly trying to break my limbs, my sanity, right, and one shot me to hell. That's the main reason why I take it over the other one. Um, but yeah, okay. This one you can just stim. Okay, most of this damage that you're gonna get, yeah, actually, yeah, you can just stim it away. Yeah, that's just me. So, and then we have the Desert Storm armor again. Arrowhead's just getting lazy with this. Most of this damage is going to be caused by you or your teammates, not the enemy. And there's better throwing range than this. Oh yeah, and then Fleet First. So I've mentioned before in the pinned comment for the bot video and the bug video, generally speaking, reduced detection range as opposed to this is better. Okay, I'm not gonna go all in on it. I'll probably it's like I would say, okay, the way I'll sum it up is this. If the minimum detection range for Scout is 21 meters, I'd rather not be detected uh up to like 21 meters instead of 30. Because even if you have this, you'll be detected at 22 meters, 23, 24. I would rather not be detected by that range at all rather than take 50% less noise. That's basically it. And then immunity to leg injuries, it's just better positioning, okay? And if you don't care about deathless or stimless, okay, you can just stim that away anyway. So that's kind of pointless. Um, yeah, you could just take more fun or other fun armor passives instead of this. So yeah, okay, let's move on. Okay, so then we have uh why is this not? Let me check this for a moment. Okay, so this isn't properly uploaded. Uh, but I can tell you from this much is the assault rifles, they're generally good for clearing out chaff and taking out uh they're generally good for taking out chaff and shields as well. Actually, let me just pause this for a moment. Okay, I am back. So I've just fixed it. Yeah, something funky was happening, but I'm just gonna quickly go back to some of the defensive mm, 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 things, and I can't find it here. But there is also the laser sentry, right? And I don't know why it's not showing up here because I was looking back at my notes and it wasn't showing up. But the laser sentry, I haven't taken that simply because compared to the other sentries, it just take like the Gatling sentry and the machine gun sentry, it just takes way too long to kill flesh mobs and flying overseers in comparisons. And it can fire for roughly the same amount of time as well, but the laser sentry cannot target interlopers. I have no idea why. It's just a oversight by the devs, which is annoying. But even if it could, I still wouldn't choose it over the Gatling sentry or the machine gun sentry because they're just faster at killing stuff, better at killing stuff as well. So, okay, let's go to the primary weapons, the assault rifles. So, generally speaking, as I mentioned before, like they're all pretty decent, right? The biggest problem with these, like they're all decent with killing chaff and shields and so on. No, not so much like flesh mobs and all that kind of stuff, or overseers so much. The biggest problem is ammo economy, right? Killing that much chaff is very, very ammo hungry. Even when you have resupplies, and especially on solo runs. That's why the sickle is the king for me over these options because you don't need to reload if you manage carefully, which is very easy. And yeah, you just don't need to reload. You don't need to worry about ammo. But if I was to choose which one, then I believe that's a Halo. No, that's a Halo rifle. I like that, but again, you could just choose any to begin with. I wouldn't fuss over it too much because then your next set of options is the marksman rifles. Again, the diligence rifle or the diligent marksman rifle. I think I prefer the diligent marksman rifle. I just love rifles in general. This game is not very kind to rifles, but they do quite well against squids. So by all means, choose them if you don't want to use the sickle and you just love rifles. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about submachine guns much, even if they do have stun options because it takes way too many shots to stun. I don't think flesh mobs can be stunned. Even if they do, it takes way too long, and you want to focus more on just killing stuff, destroying shields, and killing chaff. Um, yeah. So again, the sickle is just better because you don't have to reload and you don't have to worry about ammo economy. Whereas with these guns, you do, and they require a lot more aiming in general. And then shotguns, in general, like they're fine against chaff, but if you put them against anything that isn't if you put them against flesh mobs and overseers, you're going to have problems because of range, of spread, and so on, right? It just takes too long. And there's also ammo economy to worry about. Not as much as the rifles and assault rifles and so on. But yeah, sickle, same reason why I choose them over anything else. Oh, and also if you're wondering, how do I know how these weapons work if they're all level one, right? Well, I tested all of these weapons extensively before Arrowhead implemented the leveling system for the guns, and I have no interest of leveling up these guns or really playing around with them, because I don't enjoy them as much as the options I'm currently using now. And also, all the fancy sights and dots and all those fancy grips they don't really change the effectiveness of the weapon. They make it easier and more fun to use, but it doesn't change really how effective they are in the grand scheme of things. Okay, and then we have explosive weapons. So the reason why I wouldn't recommend the crossbow is simply because it skips the ground way too much when you're trying to target faultless. I've seen people say you can easily target flying overseers with this. I call bullshit. Okay. Um, Flying overseas, they fly around too much, and they're insanely hard to hit with a crossbow, especially the further out you go. Yeah, you could probably hit flying overseers consistently within what, 20, 30 meters, but beyond that, but you're just praying, you're just coping by that point. If you think you can consistently kill flying overseers beyond 30 meters with the crossbow. Yeah, and if you want to kill chaff and all that kind of stuff, you've got better options. Okay. Like the Eruptor, right? The Eruptor just far outclasses the crossbow in every department, basically, for the squids. But even again, the Eruptor is basically a slower autocannon, right? Much slower autocannon. So, and also I've tried Eruptor machine gun combo, which is basically the same as sickle and autocannon. And sickle autocannon just beats chaff and heavy targets so much faster, easier, without having to worry too much about ammo, um, than the Eruptor and any machine gun or sword combo. Okay, energy-based weapons. Yeah, I don't really need to go over the others here. I believe, actually, no. The Purifier. I'm not talking about the one that sh lobs plasma grenades, but I believe it's called the Purifier. That's insanely fast and really good at killing um, flying overseers, right? Um, but again, ammo economy issues, they're not so great against shields and so on. The Scythe simply, no, the sickle just simply wins out, not only just due to animal economy, but it's just extremely good against anything that is not a harvester, a overseer, or a flesh mob, right? And I've got the autocannon and the mech for that. So everything else is just like A star, like SS plus or whatever you want to call it for that. So yeah. Okay. Actually, I also say the one that you charge up for like 2 seconds, I forget the name of it. Is it Scorcher? Um, Actually, Purify might be the one that ramps up. But either way, there's one where you just charge up your shot and then you can easily kill overseers in 2 shots with it. Right? It's far better than the sickle. And because the sickle, you have to train on it for 3 seconds. The sickle still has the same TTK, the time to kill, as the one that needs to charge up 2 shots to kill the overseer, which was surprising when I did that test. But anyway, let's move on. Yeah, these are all meme weapons than anything else against the squids, except maybe the Jar Dominator. But again, I prefer the Diligence Marksman rifle over it because I just like it more. Okay, for pistols, again, I've tried the P4 Warren against overseers. It takes more than a full mag or clip or however you want to call it to kill them. And against chaff, you've got so many other better weapons to kill chaff, right? You got your purifiers. Basically, any primary weapon is better than the pistol for killing them. And the only reason I choose the ultimate, yeah, they're memes. The only reason I choose the ultimatum is simply just for terrain reconstruction, right? That's basically it because I don't need more damage. Um, but having an emergency delete button against overseers or flesh mobs that get too close, which I never do anyway, is nice. But just being able to blow past the wall feels really good to escape masses of flying overseers and so on. Okay, now we have the grenades. So pineapple grenade was, if I'm being honest, it's just really disappointing. You're just better off using an impact grenade or any other grenade. The TNT takes way too long. Um, I used incendiary grenade. There's two types of incendiary grenades, right? You've got the one that activates incendiary impact, and then the one that has a larger AoE, but has a longer fuse time. Both of those are amazing. The only reason I decided to switch from fire to gas, even though fire is far faster killing voteless, is simply because of the flesh mobs and give my sentries more time to kill them. I've also tried the arc grenade, and if I'm being honest, it's just insanely disappointing against the squids because arc grenades don't one-shot every voteless within range, which is a shame, right? Because it arcs out in a lightning, it's not an AoE attack. And also, arc grenades pulse 5 times, and they need to hit the overseer 4 times to kill an overseer. So it's not ideal against um, squids because if you want to stun them, you're just better off with the gas grenade, right? If you want to kill them, you're better off with secret grenades or any other support weapon and stratagem um, as well. Now you could use Urshin again, but the area of effect is way too small. You're better off just having gas. If you want chaff, yeah, you could have the thermite grenades. I think the devs will eventually patch them out so that they don't one shot or two shot the tippy toes of harvesters, because I'm pretty sure that's unintentional. And I don't get why the sparks is much higher AP than a lot of um anti-medium targets like the autocannon. And I don't get why the sparks are much higher AP than the actual explosion itself, which is crazy. Um, and I don't like thermite because sometimes it sticks, sometimes it doesn't. Um, on harvesters, I'm sure there's a technique to it, but it's just too finicky. And it's quite hard to aim with, if I'm being honest, to kill harvesters, and you have to get super close to them. Um, but yeah, that's basically it for the grenades. I don't really talk too much about the standard grenades because you know them all, right? If you need more damage, you got other reliable sources elsewhere. And then we have the boosters. So I think the booster is pretty much the last thing. I used to like you could use the reduced damage, the heart one. Uh, Revitalization boost, I believe it's called. But again, most people are never going to play stimulus like I do. And if you don't, you got stims, right? And if you do want to try a stimulus, then again, I would rather take the extra sentry to prevent myself from getting hit rather than just tank more hits, right? I don't use the extra stamina because you're not being constantly chased and a bazillion bugs trying to face hug you. And even if you do have the voters trying to do that, they're nowhere near as fast as the bugs. Um, you're not running enough heavy terrain to slow you down. I don't need increased info. I just want more sentries, always more sentries. These boosters are basically useless in terms of solo challenges, or you don't really need to worry too much about in team games because someone's going to take the booster, the one that gives you more ammo at the start. Um, Localization confusion is basically useless. It's one of the most useless boosters in the entire game because it only reduces, actually, no, it only increases the time between enemy reinforcements by like 10 to maybe 15 seconds. So maybe you have one less enemy reinforcement call in per game. That is just terribly thought out. And I mathed that all when it was first released as well. It's just not worth it at all. Um, Again, that's people don't really use that. There's just better stratagems. Again, you could use a sim one if you really didn't care about stimless or deathless. Um, but yeah, the rest of them are just like pretty. They're not very effective. They're not. They're just memes. We have so many meme boosters or unnecessary boosters. It's crazy. So I'm not going to talk too much about them because you don't need to. Right. But yeah. And I think that's pretty much it, right? That's everything I have about the best Illuminate loadout. And if you like what you saw, I would appreciate you like, share, comment, subscribe because I don't have a regular upload schedule. But I hope this was really informative. You learned a lot from it. If you've got any questions, do ask, right? I do share the runs for all of my um to kind of like prove my build as well in the video description. And remember, after this video has been released, if you're looking for what do I think about the next warband that comes out afterwards, how does it affect the loadout for the squids or Illuminate? I will paste my thoughts in the pinned comment below this video. Okay? Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you guys have a great day. See you.